Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Let's learn with Lizzie. Imagine being separated from your mother at a very young age, taken to a strange land, forced to wear unfamiliar clothes, speak an unknown language. And then one day, your long hair, the symbol of your culture and identity, is cut off against your will. How would you feel? And today we are going to deeply analyze one of the most powerful autobiographical pieces in your CBSE Class 12 textbook, The Cutting of My Long Hair by Zitkala-Sa. This chapter is not just about a haircut, it is about identity, oppression, resistance, and the emotional trauma of forced cultural assimilation. Let us begin by understanding the author. Zitkala-Sa, whose name is also known famously as Gertrude Simons Bonnen, was born in 1876. She belonged to Yankton Sioux tribe, a Native American community. She was not only a writer but also an activist and reformer. She openly criticized the white-run boarding schools that attempted to erase Native American culture. In fact, she later became one of the leading voices advocating for Native American rights. Now ask yourself, why would she write about a childhood memory like this? Because that memory shaped her identity and her rebellion. And that brings us to the background of the chapter. In the late 19th century America, Native American children were forcibly sent to boarding schools run by white missionaries. The aim was very cruel and clear: to civilize them. These schools tried to cut their hair, change their clothes, ban their language, replace their traditions. This process is called forced assimilation. So when we read this chapter, we must understand this is not personal cruelty alone. This is institutional oppression. Now let's focus on the major themes which are present in the story. First comes the cultural oppression, then loss of identity, humiliation and trauma, resistance and rebellion, colonial domination, and childhood innocence versus institutional cruelty. And we will be focusing on all these themes in this chapter in detail. Now let us move to the first day at school. The story begins on a bitterly cold day. Snow covers the ground, trees are bare. Notice the imagery. The cold weather symbolizes emotional coldness and lack of warmth in the new environment. Then comes the loud metallic bell. The sounds are harsh, clattering shoes, murmuring voices in an unknown tongue. She describes it as bedlam. This shows confusion and fear. She feels trapped, and notice this line carefully. Though my spirit tore itself in struggling for its lost freedom, all was useless. This shows that even though she is physically present in the school, mentally she is resisting. Now comes her first humiliation. She does not understand the system of bells. When the first bell rings, she sits down, thinking that is what she is supposed to do, but everyone else remains standing. She becomes the center of attention. Imagine the embarrassment of a child in a new environment, not knowing the rules. Then she notices a white woman staring at her. She feels watched, judged. Finally, when the third bell rings, everyone begins eating. But she does not eat, she cries. This shows emotional breakdown and fear. But this was not the worst part of her first day. Her friend Judwin tells her something terrible. The authorities plan to cut their long hair. Now, students, you must understand the cultural importance of hair in Native American communities. Short hair was worn by mourners. Shingled hair was worn by cowards. Captured warriors had their hair cut by enemies. So, cutting her hair means humiliation. It means dishonor. It means cultural death. This is why she reacts very strongly. She says, "No, I will not submit. I will struggle first." This is the seed of rebellion. She hides under a bed in a dark room. Think about this symbolically. The bed becomes her temporary refuge. Darkness represents fear, but hiding also represents resistance. Even as a child, she recognizes injustice. She refuses to accept humiliation very quietly. But what happens next? She is discovered. dragged out, carried downstairs, and tied to a chair. Now listen carefully to the imagery. I felt the cold blades of the scissors against my neck. The word cold is important here. It reflects emotional cruelty. She resists by kicking and scratching like a trapped animal. Finally, her thick braids are cut off. And then she says something very powerful. Then I lost my spirit. This is the moment of psychological defeat. Students, for board exams, you must explain symbolism clearly. Hair symbolizes cultural identity, pride, tradition, self respect, and cutting the hair symbolizes forced assimilation, loss of identity, colonial domination, dehumanization. She compares herself to one of many little animals driven by a herder. This metaphor shows that she feels treated like cattle, not a human being. This is the depth of humiliation. This is not just a personal memory, it is a political statement. So now let us focus on the literary devices used by the author in the chapter. First comes the imagery. The author uses the imagery in the sentences like loud metallic voice, cold blades of scissors. These all sentences create sensory experiences. And next comes metaphor, little animals driven by a herder. This shows dehumanization, and symbolism is shown through hair, bell, shoes replacing moccasins. All these are talking about identity, authority, and control and cultural replacement. And the tone of the story is bitter, traumatized, reflective, and rebellious. Now let us move on to the character analysis of Zitkala-Sa. How is Zitkala-Sa portrayed? She is sensitive, emotionally attached to her culture, courageous, self-respecting, and rebellious person. Though physically overpowered, mentally she remains aware, and the awareness is the beginning of revolution. Now, what is the nature of oppression depicted in this story? The chapter depicts cultural imperialism. White Americans believed their culture superior and to forced assimilation, where the erasing native identity to civilize them. In the name of civilization, they're erasing a whole identity of an institution. Institutional racism that was nothing but the systematic humiliation inside the school. Now let us compare Zitkala-Sa with Bama, the author of the another chapter from the Memories of Childhood. Zitkala-Sa is from Native America and Bama is from India. Here Zitkala-Sa is facing Native American oppression. On the other hand, Bama faces caste discrimination. Zitkala-Sa has cultural erasure, colonial racism, and emotional trauma, whereas Bama faces social untouchability, caste hierarchy, and social humiliation. Both of them had a very cruel childhood, and both of them overcame that using their rebellious characteristics. Even though they both are from different countries, they both have served as a voice for rebellion, a voice for a change, and have created a history by changing the course of the oppression, by raising the voice against the discrimination. That is very important that we need to know. And now let us focus on some important exam questions that can come in your exams. Why was Zitkala-Sa terrified of getting her hair cut? How did the school authorities treat the native children? What does the cutting of hair symbolize? Describe the humiliation faced by Zitkala-Sa in the boarding school. How does the chapter highlight cultural oppression? Compare the childhood experiences of Zitkala-Sa and Bama. Now let's move on to the key quotations used in the story that can help in your board exams. No, I will not submit. I will struggle first. And then I felt the cold blades of the scissors against my neck. And finally, now I was only one of many little animals driven by a herder. Use these kinds of quotations in your board exams for fetching good marks. This will actually increase the standard of your answers, especially the long answers. This chapter exposes colonial mentality. The white authorities believed their culture was superior. They wanted to erase Native American identity. But the author, by writing this memoir, reverses that power. She reclaims her voice, she turns trauma into resistance. And that is the true power of autobiographical writing. In conclusion, The Cutting of My Long Hair is a powerful biographical protest. It teaches us that cultural identity must be respected. Oppression leaves lifelong scars. Even children recognize injustice, and resistance begins with awareness. The chapter is deeply relevant even today in discussion about racism, cultural assimilation, indigenous rights, and human dignity. And remember, oppression may silence the body, but it cannot silence the spirit forever. Zitkala-Sa transformed her pain into activism, and that is why this chapter remains powerful even today. If this explanation helped you understand the chapter deeply, don't forget to revise the key symbolism and practice writing structured answers. In the next video, we will be analyzing part 2, We Too Are Human Beings by Bama. Keep learning, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep thinking critically. So that's it for today. If you felt like this video was helpful, kindly hit the like, share, and subscribe button, and see you soon in the next video.